this flight right here doesn't make someone love flying, I don't know what will. Welcome back to the cockpit, fellow aviators. My name's Matt Farrell and I'm the flying salesman. Appreciate you coming along today. Shot over to McKinney, Texas. Had some vendor visits that we needed to do. Trying to work out some new deals with some vendors, so that's always exciting. Had some great meetings. Now we're back in the airplane and headed home for the evening. Gonna get to spend tonight in my own bed. I'm really excited about that. Been on the road for a few days, so looking forward to seeing the family. Appreciate you guys coming along. I hope y'all enjoy the flight. We're gonna blast off out of here. We're going VFR at 9,500 feet back home. Pretty windy today. We had some pretty good winds, 50 knots winds aloft at 9,000 feet, so we'll be bucking some of that on the way home. But at 9,000, it was a little bit west of south, so we might actually have a little bit of tailwind that high. So looking forward to that. We're going to do our run-up and go through our checklist, make sure everything's squared away here in the office, and then we'll blast off. All right, parking brake set, cabin door secure, windows secure, cow flaps full open, controls free and correct. Fuller tank, elevator rudder trim set for takeoff. Give me just a little bit of nose up there. 1700 RPM. Left mag, good drop. Right mag, good drop. Close that window there. Propeller, good drop. All engine instruments in the green. Avionics set, autopilot. We are 180. Flight director heading plus 500 feet. Back to the map. That on nav. 5271124.3. 1882. Okay, we got the cockpit squared away. McKinney Tower, Centurion 604 November, ready to go, Bravo 1 at 18.
Centurion 604 November, McKinney Tower, hold short, runway 18, landing traffic.
Hold short, 18, 48 November.
Centurion 48 November, I have one aircraft to get you by, so for now, fly runway heading. Runway 18, you're clear for takeoff.
For takeoff, fly runway heading for 6048 November.
Approaching runway 18. Entered runway 18, 7,500 feet remaining.
Remaining in the pattern with the simulated edge cut to a touch go. Number 68332, McKinney Tower, roger. And just so I'll make sure I understand what you want to do. You want to start a takeoff roll, cut the engine, and then resume your departure roll for touch and go?
Traffic,
we'll come
11
up to about
o'clock,
75 feet
2
above
miles,
the runway,
700 feet
simulated
above.
engine cut, come down, touch and go, and then remain in the pattern. So yeah, 332.
68332, approved as requested, runway 18, clear for takeoff, fly runway heading.
18, cleared for takeoff, fly runway heading 68332.
Cirrus 233 Romeo Golf, runway 18, clear to land.
Clear to land 18, 3 Romeo.
Centurion 48 November, turn left on course, contact regional departure 124.3.
Left on course, going to departure 48 November. And departure Centurion 6048 November to off of McKinney. Out of 1.8 climbing, no altitude restriction, direct to Shreveport downtown.
Centurion 6048 November, regional departure, you radar contact. You climb, you request altitude.
All right, up to 9,500 for 6048 November. Usually,
519 Alpha 5 shot, resume on navigation 1.
Usually coming out of this airspace, they give me assigned altitudes. And they didn't do that this time, so I wanted to make sure that I was on the same page with departure control, so I made sure I told them that I had no altitude restrictions.
Coach Radio 459 Bravo Echo, regional departure radar contact. Traffic passing overhead there, 2500 is Cherokee. I get you higher there beyond that traffic.
Bravo Echo, roger.
And November 459 Bravo Echo, sliding 070.
060, Bravo Echo.
70 on the heading, 070.
070, Bravo Echo.
Centurion, the 48 November, traffic is about 3 o'clock, 4 miles east-northeast bound, 2500 indicated.
48 November's looking for the traffic.
November 672 Papa Bravo, contact forward center 124.75. Good day.
2475, 672 Papa Bravo, send.
Try and get a video of the wind being swept across the lake down here. Often we are taught to look for visual cues to determine where the wind's coming out of. Not really hard to remember.
45, what's your request?
It was blowing almost 20 knots when we took off on runway 18. In the event we need to look for an off-site landing point, want to try and do that with a southerly heading into the wind.
X-ray has Foxtrot at Beecham.
November 1517 X-ray, roger.
But the wind being swept across the lake is one of those indications you can use to know which way the wind is blowing.
Flight 29, regional approach, X-rays current for Addison.
After that, we'll get the weather. Yeah, we'd like to also just shoot the vectors for the RNAV 16.
Flight 29, roger, direct to Addison. I'll have vectors for the final prior to that.
Yes, roger that, direct to Addison, and that'll be for the ILS. Sorry about that.
Roger. 6048 November, contact forward center 132.02. You're outside of the Bravo airspace.
132.02 for 6048 November. Good night.
5 minutes later.
Forward center Centurion 604 November 5.2, climbing for 9.5.
6048 November, forward center, majors altimeter 3007.
007, 48 November.
American 2791, connect forward center 126.57. Good day.
2657, American 2791. Good day.
So we're outside the class Bravo. 50 minutes, 128 nautical miles to Shreveport downtown. Looks like we're going to be able to stop that climb at about 7,500 feet and have smooth air and a little bit of that tailwind we were looking for. Afternoon cooling has gone into effect and slowing that wind down a little bit. The heating of the ground has subsided a little bit, so not quite as many bumps as we had earlier today. So looks like 7,500 would be a good stopping point.
Spirit 273.
And we'll get it established in our cruise. I want to welcome Jim Reese, a new subscriber to the channel.
273, you're clear direct.
He reached out to me and wanted to know the cruise settings that I have in the 210. Evidently, he's a new owner of a 210. So congratulations, Jim. Welcome to the family of the Centurion Owners Group. Once we get established in cruise flight, I'll give you a rundown how I set up the airplane for cruise, and hopefully it's something that correlates to your airplane. Right now I've got 30 inches of manifold pressure, 2,500 RPMs, 150 pounds per hour on the fuel flow. We're climbing 500 feet per minute, 138, 139 knots indicated, true airspeed 154, got a ground speed of 158 right now.
Fort Worth, good afternoon, Bonanza 38081 is climbing out of 4.5 for 9,500.
We reached 7,500, we're starting leveling off.
Shreveport altimeter 3011. 3011 for 01, thanks sir.
I do climb about 75 to 100 feet above my target altitude. No, I'm not letting the airplane get on step, but I am allowing that airplane to build speed in a slight descent versus leveling off and flying straight and level and having it power to cruise speed. So spending that extra 15 seconds to go through your altitude about 75 feet and then dive back down to it allows it to build to cruise speed just a little bit faster and more efficiently. Once that speed comes up, we configure the airplane for cruise. 28 inches of manifold pressure, 2,400 RPM is what we're looking for. And then I do a course leaning, and I get that fuel flow down about 105, 110 pounds per hour, because I know it's going to wind up just a little bit under that. So go ahead and pull a little bit of mixture out, get it just a little bit richer than where I know it's going to land, and let everything stabilize. I do have a playlist on YouTube of 210 specific videos where I do Rich a Peak, how I lean the airplane for 100 degrees Rich a Peak. We talk about the gear position mirrors that are mounted to the wings. We talk about the Wilco Vit kits, LED lighting we go over a little bit, and generally how I operate the airplane. So that 210 playlist that I have on my channel is a good one for 210 operators who are curious how this particular airplane flies and the numbers that you get out of it.
Center discovered.
28 inches manifold, 2,400 RPM, cow flaps full closed,
24 center, majors out.
about 105 pounds per hour.
3007, code 4930.
We are level 7,500. So we have a ground speed right now of 193 knots, a true airspeed of 173 knots, indicating 152.
Temperature, good afternoon, evening. American 294 is with you at 12.4 for 17,000. American 2094, forward center, maintain flight level 230. That's 230, American 2094. It's been pretty smooth in the climb out here. Can we expect that?
I think up at 39 should be mostly smooth.
Very good.
And just to give you guys a baseline, across the board, my cylinder head temperatures are 330, 326, 349, 345, 349, and 325. With a TIT of 1319. EGTs 1336, 1352, 1348, 1340, 1301, and 1260.
4934.
Oil temperature is 170 degrees, and that's with cow flaps fully closed. In the summertime, I do crack my cow flaps, keep that oil temperature in the 180 range. I'll give you another rundown of those numbers when we lean it out for cruise. 32 minutes to go to Shreveport downtown.
American 1877, 13, climbing 17,000.
American 1877, forward center, maintain flight level 230.
230, American 1877.
Going to be less than an hour flight, so I am not going to change the fuel.
Roger.
When we get to Shreveport, going to be making a right base right turn on the final, so don't have to worry about venting the fuel tank over on the left side. So make my fuel guys' job a little easier by just having to top off one tank tonight.
Go 4934, contact Longview approach 128.75, good day.
128.75, good day, Scully 4934.
Okay, we've been in cruise for about 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and go through our leaning process. Going to hit the lean find button
forward circle, maintain
on the engine monitor.
Climbing out of flight.
I get my hand so I can see it with the sun glaring on it. Start easing that mixture out.
Should be mostly smooth at 37.
Down low like this, below 10,000 feet. You don't want to dilly-dally around. You want to turn it out pretty quick.
Center 126.57, good day.
26.
So I'm turning it about an eighth of a turn. Just kind of easing it out. Letting those temps come up. Getting close to the fuel flow, about 70 pounds per hour where it leans out. Gives me the hottest cylinder. Almost there. Number 3 cylinder in this airplane, this engine is normally the one. There it is, number 3. Hit peak EGT first. So now I'm going to enrich in that mixture just shy of 100 pounds per hour. Right about there. Let those temperatures come back rich a peak. We're looking for 100 degrees rich a peak. And again, if you go check out my Rich a Peak video, I have film of all this and me doing exactly this procedure. So there's 70 degrees Rich a Peak right now. I give it another eighth of a turn or so. Coming up on 80 Rich a Peak. 82, kind of slowing down a little bit. Give it another eighth of a turn. Oil temperature's up to 171 degrees. There's 90 Rich a Peak. 95, another little slow turn. We'll let that settle out right there and see where we wind up. Usually I wind up overshooting it by about 10 degrees and having to slowly work my way back down to get it perfect. That's 103 degrees rich of peak right now. We'll let our temperature stabilize. Then I'll let everybody know what the cylinder head and the EGT and the TIT is. In the spirit of what's next, go ahead and get my ASOS tuned in.
2666.
Get the tower frequency tuned in.
And 2666, forward center, come to maintain, total of 230.
230, American 2666 Heavy.
We've let the temperature stabilize now. Here's a shot of the temperatures on the engine monitor. See right there running 95, 96 rich of peak. That fluctuates just a little bit. Got 173 degrees on my oil temperature, right at 100 pounds per hour, 28 inches of manifold pressure and 2,400 RPMs. And that's with cowl flaps fully closed, and the outside air temperature is 46 degrees. So it's a cool day.
48 November, contact 1 of your approach, 127.32, sail.
127.32 for 48 November, great evening.
Addition to Juliet Charlie, expect 22.
Good evening, Longview approach, Centurion 604 November with you, level 7,500 VFR.
Centurion 6048 November, Longview approach, 6 altimeter 3010.
3010, 48 November.
We are 2 minutes from our descent. Went ahead and pulled the power back about an inch and a half. Let that stabilize for about a minute. Then I'm going to pull another inch and a half out. Hold it at about 25 inches of manifold pressure and do a cruise descent at 25 inches of manifold pressure, coming down about 400 or 500 feet per minute. Watching that airspeed, making sure that it will be close to that yellow arc. So if I start getting any bumps along the way, I'll have to slow that descent and put out flaps or the gear to increase my drag to keep my airspeed out of the yellow arc and make sure we don't overstress the airframe. High-speed descents are fun, get big ground speeds, but you have to be really careful doing that. Hot summer days when there's a lot of bumps and that sort of thing, you can't do that.
You approach Deck 55 information uniform. We'd like to request straight in to land.
The rough air airspeed for this airplane is 120 knots or below. So we certainly don't want to encounter any rough air at 160 knots. And we're reaching that top of descent.
And Longview approach, Centurion 604 November, going to begin my VFR descent for downtown.
Report November, VFR altitude, your discretion.
Altitude, my discretion, 48 November.
Okay, that's 400 feet per minute down on the autopilot. We'll see how that does for us. Right now, got a ground speed of 181 knots. See what that builds to. 25 inches of manifold pressure, 2,400 RPM. And we got about 90 pounds per hour. Going through 185 knots ground speed. Still in the green arc at 162 knots. 187 knots. That's probably about where we're going to wind up.
November, contact Shreveport approach, 119.9, good day.
19.9 for 6048 November. Y'all have a great evening. Good evening, Shreveport approach, Centurion 604 November, 6.9 descending for downtown with the weather, and I have downtown in sight.
November 6048, November, Shreveport approach, roger, downtown landing runway 14. Expect a frequency change about 15 miles out.
All right, 4 November, we'll be expecting 14, and that frequency change about 15 miles out.
So just for fun, we're going to go ahead and go to procedure, approach, RNAV GPS 14, vectors, load, approach, and activate. And we're going to go direct to SOMU. It's going to be about a 5-mile final, if I'm not mistaken. Just take it right to the runway. Direct to activate. Not be much of a difference. Again, they didn't give me an altitude restriction going into Shreveport, so that's good. Usually coming in from the west, they give you an altitude restriction on the approach of 15 going into regional. Got a ground speed of 192 knots. Just barely in that yellow arc. at 165 knots. Pull that power back just about an inch or so, get it out of that yellow arc. In the evening like this, the temperatures are cooling off, the thermals have died down, a lot more comfortable doing a cruise descent like this in these conditions. What we're managing at this point, we're managing not only the speed, but when we arrive at traffic pattern altitude, we also have to be slowed down. And we don't want to shock cool the engine. I'll give you guys a shot of the temperatures. That's where our temperatures stand right now. You can see everything's cooled down nice and slow. Pulling that power back slow in cruise speed allows everything to cool down at a nice gradual rate. We'll just keep easing that power back. The goal that I was taught a long time ago by an instructor that I really respect and admire the way he flies the airplane is when you're making your approach into an airport, try not to take out any more power than you have to so you don't have to add power. So just very slowly and methodically plan your descent, stay ahead of the airplane, stay ahead of the airspeeds, and ease that power back. But don't pull it back so far that you're going to have to add it back in. 5,000 feet to go. The airport elevation is 168 feet at Shreveport downtown. So basically 5,000 feet to go to the ground. And we need about 500 feet per minute down. We're about 7 minutes out, so a little bit behind the descent. Go ahead and give it another 100 feet per minute. But again, we're going to be slowing it down.
Destination ASOS is 118.525.
Thank you, Gladys. We're going to set up for a right base. So I think it's going to work out just about right. And if we need to add some flaps, we'll slow down and add some flaps, add gear, whatever we need to do. Got our radio towers out here that we got to pay attention to. 1,800 feet AGL. Got to pay attention to those. Got our first little bump. Kick that autopilot out. Pull that nose up. Let that airspeed bleed off. 6 minutes from the airport, 4,000 feet is going to work out just about perfect. Let that airspeed descend, or excuse me, let that airspeed bleed off below 150. We'll get our flaps out. Let that airspeed bleed down below 140, and we'll get our gear out. That'll slow us down nicely and set us up for our approach into downtown. There's 151 knots.
Still here. Good deal. That's 4 November, you can contact downtown tower 120.22. Great day, sir.
Fantastic. 4 November's going to tower. Y'all have a great evening.
All right, we're below 150 at 145, getting that 10 degrees of flaps on tower. Gonna get it below 140, gonna get that gear coming down. And the gear's coming down. Downtown tower, Centurion 604 November, 15 out, inbound for landing with the numbers.
Centurion 604, 8 November, downtown tower. Make sure you're in for runway 14. Runway 14, clear land.
Cleared to land 14 for 604 November. Okay, we are cleared. Got the airport in sight. At this point in time, go to procedure, and I'm going to activate vectors to final. Back, flight plan, and activate leg for that SOMU to runway 14 leg. We're going to be coming inside SOMU. Back to my map. Keep that power coming out. Easing it down. I'm about 22 inches of manifold pressure right now. So we're 3,600 feet and 5 minutes out. 500 feet per minute is going to put me 1,000 feet above the ground. Basically a modified right base for final of 14. I'm on a heading of 100, landing on runway 14. So only got about a 40-degree turn onto final. But everything's looking good. 2,400 to go, 4 minutes out. I have the landing gear down, got a wheel, got a green. Still 22 inches of manifold pressure coming down at about 500-600 feet per minute. Using my finger over here now, going to slow that descent down by adding a little bit of up trim. Tell you what, it's this time of evening when you're flying, you don't get these days very often. Really smooth, beautiful weather, nobody on the radio. If this flight right here doesn't make someone love flying, I don't know what will. Just beautiful, beautiful weather, smooth air. See if the pilot can do a good job on his landing. That's always a challenge. No excuses on a day like today. Below 2,000 feet. 3 minutes out. Glide slope starting to come in, showing we're just a little bit below glide slope. So again, I can start slowing this bad boy down. So I just gave it a little bit of notch of up trim. Pull that power back about 2 inches, bring it down 20, 21 inches. Got 127, 128 knots air, indicated airspeed. Got my finger over here rolling that wheel up. That's going to bring the nose up, slow me down. I got to be below 115 knots to get 20 degrees of flaps in. I can see the VASI out there. There's the center line coming in. A little bit low. Still easing that power out. We're at 1,400 feet, a little bit above traffic pattern altitude. There's 115 knots. Just using my finger to ease the nose up on that trim. Get the airplane stabilized for approach. A stabilized approach, in my definition of my book, is you can fly the approach hands off. I got a little bit, I don't have quite the descent rate I need. I'm going to pull a little bit more power back. I don't need those flaps just quite yet.
3 mile final runway 14.
Thank you, Gladys. Got my landing light on. I am cleared to land. Rolling that trim up. I'm going to go ahead and give it 20 degrees of flaps. Giving a little bit of forward pressure on the yoke just to hold a consistent attitude.
Go to downtown ground, proceed on November, hold short of runway 14.
Don't know if you can see it in the front camera there, but got 3 whites, 1 red.
Go to cross runway 14 November, Foxtrot Delta to the ramp.
Same indication on my glide slope indicator on the Aspen. I'm going to come in with props.
With you.
That's going to slow me down a little bit more.
And that's a 29 Tango Charlie, downtown tower, and our right base for runway 14.
Right base for 14, 29 Tango Charlie.
100 knots on the airspeed. I'm on course, on glide slope.
500.
According to the VASI, I'm a little bit high, and according to the glide slope, I'm a little bit high. 98 knots, so I'm going to put the nose down, get my airspeed back to 100 knots, and get right on glide path just like that. 100 knots, 2 whites, 2 reds. I'll pull a little bit more power out, start transitioning to 80 knots. When I do that, I'm going to get a sink rate. I can feel the airplane sinking. I get the next notch of flaps, and it lifts me right back up and puts me right back on glide path. There's 87 knots coming down to about 80 knots. There's 85 knots. Might have it just a little bit slower than I want to be. Come in with about 2 inches of manifold pressure because I'm losing my glide slope. There's 80 knots. Perfect. 80 knots. Now I'm letting that airspeed decay a little bit. I'm at 77 knots. Still on glide path. Cross the fence, coming over the numbers, easing that power out. Transition to my flare. Let the airplane settle right down to the runway. Didn't even feel the wheels touch, did you? And we're going to make taxiway echo.
Air 48 November, where are you parking?
Echo November to Golf, please, to the north end.
Air 48 November, roger. Turn left on Echo, left on November to park, remain free.
All right, Echo November Golf, this frequency for 604 November. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
Clear the active. And verify cow flaps. Cow flaps verified. Verify wing flaps. Wing flaps verified. Landing light, taxi light, strobes off. Always leave the beacon on. We're going to taxi to park this frequency. We're going to put my count up timer for my turbo to get my 3 minutes. Make sure my RPM is at 1,000 RPM. Appreciate everybody coming along. Thanks for jumping in the airplane and flying with us. It's good to be home. Looking forward to sleeping in my own bed tonight. Hope you guys stay safe out there and y'all have a good night.